Hello students, welcome to this channel. If you are looking to memorize many words for a competitive exam, you have come to the right place. You can learn many words in a short duration of time. One thing that I can assure you is that it is a very scientific method. All the pronunciation of the word is the same as per the international level. If you want to see these words in a flashcard format, we have already developed a platform and a mobile app. You can easily access these words as per your convenience. Now, let us discuss these words. First, look at the meaning and then try to make a broader picture in your mind. Someone crazy about something can be called a fancier. If you join a club to promote the well-being of pheasants, someone might describe you as a pheasant fancier. That just means you like pheasants a lot. A farce is a broad satire or comedy, though now it's used to describe something that is supposed to be serious but has turned ridiculous. If a defendant is not treated fairly, his lawyer might say that the trial is a farce. The adjective fatal describes something that is capable of causing death. Certain cleaning products, for instance, are labeled, could be fatal if swallowed. Here's a helpful suggestion: don't swallow them. Is it your fate to win a fortune in the lottery and retire young? Better hope so. Fate is like destiny, so that means winning the lottery would be an inevitable outcome. A fateful moment is one that seems impossible to avoid. And when a fateful event occurs, it feels like it will have a big impact on your future, and usually not in a good way. Fatuous means lacking intelligence. When your mother outlaws calling your brother stupid, use fatuous instead. When you go on a nature walk in a school setting, your teacher might tell you to observe the flora and fauna in the woods. Flora is plant life, fauna refers to animals. If you misread a party invitation and arrive in a penguin costume, only to realize that the other guests are wearing elegant gowns and tuxedos, you'll understand what it means to commit a faux pas, or an awkward social mistake. If something is feasible, then you can do it without too much difficulty. When someone asks, "Is it feasible?" the person is asking if you'll be able to get something done. You know how you feel when you can't open a jar of pickles? And then grandma walks in and does it in one shot without even grunting? That's called feeling feeble, or lacking strength. For a more formal way to say pretend to or imitate, choose the verb feign. You might feign indifference when you hear about some gossip, but you're probably dying to know. Felicity is a state of happiness or the quality of joy. Sitting on the roof with a telescope and iced tea on a clear, starry night is one way to find perfect felicity, a happy place. A felony is a serious crime, like murder, arson, or burglary. Fashion critics may think that wearing white shoes after Labor Day is a felony, but it isn't really. When animal control finds a feral dog, they have to handle it very carefully because the animal is so wild that it's probably afraid of humans and likely to bite. A ferry is a boat that carries people, cars, and cargo back and forth across a body of water. The Staten Island ferry ferries commuters from Manhattan to Staten Island every 10 minutes during rush hour. A fetter is a shackle or chain that is attached to someone's ankles. To fetter someone is to restrict their movement, either literally or metaphorically. You might feel fettered by your parents' rules, even without the chains. A fiend is a person or monster who has evil plans in their mind. They may try to steal your soul, or perhaps just want to hurt your feelings. Either way, fiends never mean you well. Having finesse means you can handle difficult situations with diplomacy and tact, like the finesse it takes to help two friends work out their differences, without taking sides or alienating either one. To flabbergast is to shock, awe, bowl over. For something to flabbergast you, it ought to leave you sputtering in amazement. A flare is a sudden burst of light. The flare of a lit match in the dark night is strangely beautiful. Flaunt is to display proudly or show off, like when you flaunt your new Italian leather jacket by wearing it to the beach and pretending you're cold to make sure everyone sees it. When you flex something, you bend or contract it. To appear super tough, you might flex your archery bow while flexing your muscles. To flog is to beat or hit, especially with a tool like a stick or rod. A cruel trainer might flog an unruly horse with a whip. To flout is to scorn or show contempt for. I flout the law and the concept of civilian safety by making a concerted effort to jaywalk every time I cross a street. Folly is a noun that means foolish or crazy behavior. It would be folly to spend all night playing video games and you have a difficult exam the next day. When you foresee something, you predict or realistically envision it happening. Did you foresee your team winning the playoffs, or were you surprised? If it's delicate and easily broken, like a rare glass vase or the feelings of an overly emotional friend, it's certainly fragile. Fraught means filled with something, often something bad. Your Thanksgiving was fraught with awkward moments when your family saw your blue hair, and it only got worse when you told them you'd quit law school to join the circus. If you frown at someone, you look at them with disapproval, and if you frown on something they do, you don't approve of that either. Because you frown on smoking, you probably frown at smokers too. An outbreak of public anger or excitement can be defined as furor. A gag is a piece of cloth that's tied around a person's face to keep them from speaking or being heard. Cartoon bad guys often tie up their victims and put gags over their mouths. Gallantry is an old-fashioned word for brave behavior in a man, especially on the battlefield. Use the adjective garish to describe something that is overly vivid, bright, showy, and in bad taste, like the DJ's garish outfit that is a flashback to the disco era. To garner means to gather or earn. If you want to run for office without belonging to a political party, you must garner enough signatures, usually a few thousand, to get onto the ballot. When you stare in amazement at something, you gawk at it. You might stand frozen in one position with your mouth and eyes wide open and gawk, and you see a famous movie star on the street. When you talk about the genesis of something, you're talking about where it began. The genesis of hip-hop music was the party scene in New York City's South Bronx in the 1970s. Gigantic is an adjective used to describe something that's really big, as though it were made for a giant. You might call a skyscraper a gigantic building, especially if it towers over other buildings nearby. When you drive, you pull down your visors to block the glare or the blinding light from the sun. The rocket's red glare from the national anthem is the bright light you'd see as a rocket shoots through the sky. If you learned that you'd won a trip for 4 to Disney World, it would be hard to hide your glee. Glee means extreme happiness or delight. A glimmer is a tiny glint of light or the sliver of an idea. Either way, it's a sign of a lot more going on behind the scenes. To be glum is to be sad. Glum is a word for being depressed, bummed out, or down in the dumps. Do you like to eat and drink, really like to eat and drink? Then you might be a glutton. That guy over there correctly identifying the dozen spices used in the meal he's eating? He's likely a gourmet, someone who knows a lot about fine food. Use the noun grandeur to describe something that is splendid or magnificent, such as a lofty idea or an impressive building, the gilded domes and ornate detail added to the grandeur of the church on Red Square. When you wrestle with something, literally or figuratively, you grapple with it, or try to overcome it. If something is called grievous, you better take it seriously. Grievous is used to describe horrible things like tragedies or crimes. If you have a grievous wound, a band-aid simply won't do. Use grotesque to describe things that are very strange and ugly in an unnatural way. If something grosses you out, you can safely refer to it as grotesque. When you grumble, you complain about something clearly but quietly, in a low mutter. Some people grumble 100 times a day, about everything from the weather to the traffic to their bad luck at bowling. A guffaw is a belly laugh, a laugh that bubbles up with good feeling and plenty of volume. At the end of a stressful day of work, it's good to have some guffaws with your friends. Someone who is haggard looks exhausted and worn out, exactly how you'd expect someone who's been lost at sea for days to look. Hailstorm is a storm that produces hail, equals balls of ice that fall like rain. If you see your teacher morph into a dancing elephant, chances are you're having a hallucination, or an illusory perception. In other words, it sounds like you are seeing things. Use the adjective hapless to describe someone unlucky and deserving of pity, like the hapless car buyer who gives in to the fast-talking salesperson. Being attacked by a hungry shark or being chased by an unruly mob on the streets can be described as harrowing, which means provoking feelings of fear or horror. When one army sends raiding parties into another's territory, they're harrying them. They're not making an all-out attack, they're just trying to bother and distract the other army. The verb hasten means to move at a high speed. If you hasten to your room, no one will know that you came in late. A bird such as a hen that sits on eggs to incubate them can be said to hatch the eggs. Then, when the chick emerges from the egg, you can also say it hatched. Someone who is haughty is arrogant and full of pride. When you're haughty, you have a big attitude and act like you're better than other people. The noun hazard means something dangerous, and the adjective hazardous refers to anything that involves danger. A golf course with lots of sand traps is especially hazardous for golfers. That's why those traps are called hazards. To heckle is to challenge or harass someone. At a sporting event, fans sometimes heckle the opposing team, but it's not very respectable behavior. A heinous crime is very evil or wicked. Of course, some people only use the term as an exaggeration, claiming that their parents' requirement that they write thank you notes after their birthdays is a heinous form of torture. If your grandfather leaves his candy factory to you in his will, it means you're the heir to the family candy business, and after your grandfather dies, you will inherit the factory. If you want to keep cookies crisp for a long time, store them in a jar with a hermetic or airtight seal. Hermetic means sealed so that no air can get in. Your summer cabin deep in the woods where you go to think about how funny life is sometimes. If you want to sound fancy, it could be called a hermitage, a dwelling removed from civilization. Hideous is a word that means extremely ugly. Anything or anybody that is painful, and a little scary, to look at is hideous. When you hobble, you walk awkwardly or unsteadily because you're in pain. You might wipe out on your bike and then hobble back home, pushing it in front of you. Homage means great respect and honor, or something done to honor a person or thing. We pay homage to our ancestors and say prayers in homage to their memory. Honorary titles or awards are given to people out of respect. Honorable can be defined as bringing or deserving honor. Use the word horde to describe a large crowd. A horde of people followed the pop star as he left the airport in Helsinki. Bad luck, an injury, a mistake, an unfortunate outfit, or a crime, anything can be called horrendous if it causes such dread or fear that you can barely even think about it. A hulk is just the shell of a ship. It can stay afloat on the water, but it's not capable of sailing on the sea. Another kind of hulk is a big person, like the Incredible Hulk who could single-handedly sink the hulk of any ship. A hurdle is a barrier or other obstacle that a runner has to jump over during a race. If you trip on a hurdle, you probably won't win the race. Hush up can be defined as to keep quiet. An ideal is a model of something perfect or without equal. As an adjective, ideal describes this ultimate standard for excellence, or something that exists only as an idea. Something idle is not active. If your car is idling, it's running but not moving. If someone calls you idle, it either means they think you don't have enough to do or that you're just plain lazy. When your friend scribbles a note to you and you can't figure out what it says, it's because her handwriting is illegible, it's unreadable. Illicit means not allowed by law or custom. It's illegal to kill endangered elephants, but many poachers still engage in the illicit ivory trade. Stupid or inane behavior is imbecility. Picture a frat party gone wild, and you can picture imbecility. Imbibe is a fancy word for drink. If you need to imbibe 10 cups of coffee just to get out of the house, you might have a caffeine problem. If you immerse yourself in your work, you completely involve yourself in it, spending long hours in the office and thinking about work all the time. Something that is imminent is just about to happen. If you light a firecracker and then stick it down your pants, a very bad situation is imminent. Immolate is a verb that means to destroy something or someone, usually using fire, as a sacrifice to a higher cause. Do not try this at home. To be immune to something is to be resistant to it. If you had chickenpox as a child, you should be immune to it now. When you immure someone or something, you put it behind a wall, as in a jail or some other kind of confining space. If you can't change it, it's immutable. There are many things in life that are immutable. These unchangeable things include death, taxes, and the laws of physics. An impairment prevents someone from doing something, like how an eye injury can be an impairment to seeing. An impairment can also be any change for the worse. Impalpable describes a feeling that, though real, you can't logically explain. If you don't know why you love peanut butter and banana sandwiches so much, maybe your reasons are impalpable. When two huge semi-trailers met face to face on a one-lane mountain road, the drivers jumped out of their cabs and exclaimed, "We're at an impasse. We can't move forward, we can only reverse and go back in the direction from which we came." Imperialism is a type of government that seeks to increase its size, either by forcing, through war, or influencing, through politics, other countries to submit to their rule. The verb implicate means to connect or involve in something. For example, your cousins might implicate you in the planning of a big party for your grandparents. To impound something is to legally take it away from its owner. The police might impound your car if you were parked in front of a fire hydrant. Some of the best kinds of parties are impromptu ones, when you decide at the last minute to get together. The adjective impromptu describes things done or said without previous thought or preparation. An impulse is a sudden force or desire. This could be an electrical impulse, or an impulse to get some pizza. If doing something usually results in punishment, but you do it with impunity, you will not be punished for the deed. Students are not allowed to chew gum in school, but teachers do it with impunity. Not fair. Incarnate means having a bodily form. If you encounter someone who pulls off butterflies' wings for fun, you might describe that person as evil incarnate. Something incessant continues without interruption. When you're on a cross-country flight, it's tough to tolerate the incessant crying of a baby. An incision is a surgical cut. A doctor uses a scalpel to make an incision in a patient's skin. Something that's incongruous is inconsistent or incompatible with something else. Remember that Sesame Street song, "One of these things is not like the other"? They were talking about that one thing being incongruous. Inconspicuous describes something that doesn't stand out or attract attention. The bad news? You just got pizza sauce on your shirt. The good news? It landed in an inconspicuous spot, so no one will notice. If you want to practice these words as multiple-choice questions, you can find the guidelines in the description. If you want to play games with these words, and want to access the flashcards, you can get the detailed information in the description box. If you want to remember these words for a long duration of time, always revise these words at least 7 to 8 times. You can learn these words easily provided you burn the midnight oil. Feel free to like, subscribe and share this video. It really boosts our confidence. Have a nice day.